Have you ever wondered what has happened to the United States and its once vibrant culture? Have you ever wondered why a virtuous American culture has been in decay for over 60 to 70 years? The book Deus Ex Machina, God from the Machine, explains how foreign belief systems have been imported into the United States by foreign intellectual agents to be used to fundamentally transform the most prosperous and free nation in the world into a typical third world country. Learn how the progressive academics, progressive activists, large corporations, and the mainstream media have become appendages of the federal government, a Praetorian Guard, and an extension of the political vanguard class. Deus Ex Machina exposes the cogs of the machine that progresses our civil society to chaos and subjugation. Get this tool to educate others and illuminate the truth on the battlefield of ideas. Let's make a difference. Get Deus Ex Machina, the progression of secular socialism, from Amazon.com and Lulu.com today.
You're listening to the Lanterns Radio Network. We are the network dedicated to empowering the individual, illuminating the truth, defending American exceptionalism, and inspiring future generations. Stay connected and get involved at lanterns.buzz for great radio. Get commentary and news of the day. Lanterns.buzz.
Are you getting a TV picture now, Houston? Neil, yes, we are getting a TV picture. You're in our field of view now. Okay, ready for me to come up? All set. Okay, I'm on the top step. It's a very simple matter to hop down from one step to the next. You've got 3 more steps and then okay, I'm going to leave that 1 foot up there and both hands down about the 4th rung up.
Roger that. 10 miles is back down my nose. Watch 1 again.
And we say to our nation tonight, we say to our government, we even say to our FBI, we will not be harassed. We will not make a butchery of our conscience. We will not be intimidated, and we will be heard.
6 miles, 6 miles. Rally 2. Turning into me. Roger that. 12 miles. 4 miles. Taking right. Roger that. Good throw. Got the second one.
I got the second one on the nose right now.
Hey, I'm high cover on you.
Lock him up.
What's going on, folks? Chris Pilier, Lanterns Media Network, the Battlefield Live radio program. I want to thank you for joining me on the battlefield today. Got a great show lined up for you tonight. As usual, we are going to be discussing, seems like the new hot topic, the next progression, if you will, towards, the utopian state of socialism that the Democrats and some Republicans are trying to push us towards. So we had Obamacare in 2010? And I was saying from the very beginning that Obamacare was a step towards socialized medicine, national health care, single payer, whatever you want to call it. And that was the collapse, if you will. That was the intention, or the intention of Obamacare was to collapse our healthcare system in order to bring about socialized medicine, which would be the doorway, as Reagan called it, the doorway to socialism for our nation. You got Bernie Sanders saying that, all these big industrialized nations all around the world, have free health care, if you will, or national health care, rights to health care for everybody. Well, there's a reason why, Mr. Bernie Sanders, that all people wish that they had the United States health care system. It's because we don't have that kind of crap going on here. And there's a lot of lies being spread, right? A lot of lies about the fact that we don't have access to health care. Everyone has access to health care here in the United States, and that actually is part of the problem. So we'll talk about that on the battlefield tonight. Make sure you share. If you're watching us on Facebook Live, on the Liberty Eagle, as well as Lanterns Buzz on Facebook. And we'll be right back after the short break on the Battlefield Live radio program. And got a great guest tonight. or I should say the one and only battle axe, the blonde battle axe. Susan Swift will be on the program tonight. Stick with me. We'll be right back after this short break.
We're here to fix the machine.
Battlefield Live. You're listening to the Battlefield Live with Chris Pilier from Lanterns Media Network, the Battlefield Live radio program. I want to thank you for joining me on the battlefield today. And as I like to say as usual, but she's been actually, hobnobbing around the country as of late, having my wonderful co-host, the blonde battle axe, the illustrious Susan Swift on the battlefield tonight. What's going on, Susan?
I am blessed and highly favored, and I'm really happy to be back with you, Chris.
I'm happy.
I love being your battle axe.
I'm happy to have you back because I do monologue type shows. I enjoy that because I get to, kind of work out. I kind of think out loud, right? So it's just a different type of show for me. So I enjoy exploring those spaces. But it is so much more fun to have you to go back and forth on the battlefield about different issues and
chop things up a little bit, right?
Yes. And
yeah.
And look,
is Linda okay with this? I need clearance from. See, I'm your your radio spouse. So
yes.
I just need clearance from your first wife here.
Absolutely. Well, there's enough distance from us. You are over in the socialist states of California. That is our I guess you could say would be our what do they call it when they used to send the parents to? No, it's like when they send the parents to the dance, right? And they would stand
chaperone?
The chaperone, right? A chaperone is the distance, right? So
California is your chaperone state, is that it?
That's yes, that's it. And so I want to give a shout out to all the folks on Facebook. I want to say hi to Tim and Cindy and AJ, Dee and Sharon. Welcome to the battlefield. We have a great show on for you tonight. And look, this is a great show to have Susan back on the battlefield tonight because we're going to be talking about healthcare. And look, if you've been listening to the Battlefield Live for the many years that I've been doing this program, it goes all the way back to, I believe, 2010. One of the first things that I was really passionate about, hello, Chuck, one of the things I've been very passionate about was healthcare. And the reason why, and this goes all the way back to when Ronald Reagan actually used to do his radio program. I like to say that was the original Battlefield radio program. And he was talking about healthcare, which we'll listen to a little bit of that audio tonight, is that the healthcare system really, for the most part, is the most fragile. It is the most important industry that we deal with because it is our health. It is the closest thing to our freedom. If you take someone's health away, you take their life, their liberty, and their pursuit of happiness away. And so if you can control someone's health, or you can control by the means which they get health care, you can control them. And that's what this is all about. AJ Davis from the Lanterns Media Network had messaged me earlier, and he said just that. This is about control. And he's absolutely right, because progressivism is about the power that the haves have over the have-nots. That's what their Marxist ideology is built on. It's about the power struggle. That's why you hear the word struggle all the time. And this is really about taking power away from the quote-unquote bourgeoisie or the rich. So Susan, I take it you listened to a little bit of the comments that Bernie Sanders made, which we'll be playing here in a moment. What were your initial thoughts of this in as far as them going on the offensive?
Well, it's Bernie Sanders, and he's got the mojo from the election because Hillary lost. And Hillary has a book now, Why It Happened, and it's real simple because Trump won. That's what happened. Okay? So, but he's
That's
got
very
mojo.
good, by the way.
Thank you. Anyway, but what happened, simply, Look, as we all know, we now know the investigation's been going on for long enough. We all know what really happened. The collusion, the stolen election was the primary at the DNC. Debbie Wasserman Schultz colluded with the Clinton camp, and they stole the primary election from Bernie Sanders. We know this now, right? And Bernie he's been shafted. He's been denied his right to be the real true president of the United States. Because remember, when he was running, he had all the mojo, he had all of the youth, everybody was energized and electrified until Hillary, the Dowager Empress, the fat cankles woman, until she walked in and took it all away, right? And so now here's Bernie. He's waited his appropriate amount of time, 6-8 months. It's almost like, you've been in mourning. I think he should have been wearing black, for after the election, but he's been in mourning now, and now he's coming out saying, we have health care as a right. It's a right. We have to have it as a right. Well, I'm sorry. It's not a right. Health care, insurance is not a right. Life is a right. There are many things. You got to redefine what is a right. If you're going to start including what is health care as a right, or the insurance of health care as a right, that's crazy Looney Tune.
Right.
There is no such right to that a government cannot give you that right. But once again, we see him trumpeting the communist wet dream, right?
Right.
Socialism, the idea that we can control your health care. And if they can just get their fingers around that, if they can deny the Republicans the ability to maybe let Obamacare implode, because the Republicans are not funding it, they're trying to let it implode of its own weight. Mm-hmm. Do you remember right when after Trump took office, even the Republicans were saying, even the Democrats were criticizing Trump, saying, well, you promised to fix health care. You promised, remember? You promised you were going to fix it. And they started fussing at him for that because he had said he was going to get rid of Obamacare. They were actually fussing at him a little bit about it. I've got to go research and find where that was. The point is, now Bernie Sanders is trying to re-trumpet that because guess why? 2018.
That's right.
That's what's coming up.
That's
this
right.
Is all
They're building the
2018.
case.
This is the drum beat. We've now had our summer of racism, right?
Yes.
Berkeley free speech, Antifa, Black Lives Matter. Let's have a racist war. And now we've got to get serious. We got everybody back in school now, and we got to start getting them thinking about 2018. So this is healthcare.
So,
and remember, re-up is coming. Healthcare re-up is coming like November 1st or whatever. You got to sign back up on Obamacare. All of this is timed. This is so timed.
Absolutely.
And now we've got the communists coming in saying, healthcare is a right. It's a right. Don't let them take them away. That's Bernie for you.
So let's do
that.
that.
He's got the 16 libs with him. But anyway.
Let's do this. Let's listen to the socialist himself, Bernie Sanders. I want to get you all's take on this. I want to see some comments on Facebook at the Liberty Eagle as well as Lantern's Buzz. Check this out, y'all.
Today, we say the function of a rational healthcare system is to provide quality care to all in a cost-effective way, and not to continue a system which allows insurance companies and drug companies to make hundreds of billions of dollars in profits each year, and to make healthcare industry CEOs extremely wealthy.
So I want to stop it there because what's interesting about that is what he's saying here, and you can hear the class warfare, folks. If you hear the rich against the poor, the blacks against the whites, the gays against the straight people, the women against the men, all of that class warfare is rooted in Marxism. It's rooted in what eventually became communism when it was practiced, right? So what you're hearing Bernie Sanders do here is he's going full Marxist on you, and the thing is he's not even talking about
like the full Monty.
Yeah,
it's the full Marxist.
Yeah, he's not talking about what the values and the virtues of his system, other than the fact that everybody is going to have free health care. When the fact is that North Korea has free health care. Cuba has free health care. Nobody has the ability to go get it because they don't have enough doctors. They don't have enough, of all those type of things. So let's listen to a little bit more, and I want to get your thoughts on that, Susan. Check this out.
The strengths of a Medicare for All program are not only its universality and its cost effectiveness, it also ends the complexity of a system which adds enormous stress at a time when people need it the least. While, depending on your income, your taxes may go up to pay for this publicly funded program, that expense will be more than offset by the money you are saving by the elimination of private insurance costs. And today, we tell the drug companies that the American people are sick and tired of the greed of the pharmaceutical industry. We are no longer going to get ripped off and pay the highest prices in the world for prescription drugs.
So, all right. So,
Oh,
God, I'm so
Oh,
sick of hearing him.
You know, shut him up, please.
So the thing is
Yeah.
you know, it's all about how terrible the
rich pharmaceutical evil people who are actually spending years and years and years of R&D and lots of money and paying a whole lot of people and employing everybody to figure out new drugs that might cure cancer and stuff. We want them to stop that. These evil people.
Well, where
or
do-
do it for free. We
Yeah.
need them to do it for free.
Where do all the great drugs that we actually use for all the different ailments that we have, all the people around the world that use the drugs that are created here and that are
Yes.
available to them, not because of Bernie Sanders in the oatmeal that he eats every morning, spills all over his face before he gets up in the morning to go to work, you know, in the fancy cars that he drives and all that, you know, Mr. Rich Bernie Sanders, whose wife is getting looked at by the FBI. Apparently his math is that screwed up. Anyway, so the point is that you got a guy here who is got all these. It's amazing. I'm watching these people stand behind him. They all look like drones. They all look like zombies, like it's something out of the apocalypse. None of them have a smile on their face. They're all pissed off and angry because this is not about health care. This is about power. This is about getting the people that they believe are the enemy, which is the people that provide all of these services and drugs for us. And they're expensive. Okay, they are expensive because people want them. There's a reason why these drugs are expensive.
Yes, but not even that. Because of government regulation at every level. I mean, what he was saying about, how the expense, it'll be very expensive. Guess who created the expense? Do you remember, hello, Ted Kennedy, HMOs? This was way back, the Lion of the Senate, when they thought up this whole HMO system, when they started putting bureaucrats in between you and your doctors. That's when the costs started escalating and escalating and escalating. And then add on top of that, all of the different state laws and regulations. That's why we don't have cross-state competition.
Right.
If you would seriously just allow cross-state competition from different private, insurance companies, they would actually be able to compete in different states, and that would drive the cost down. Why? Because that's what competition does. That's what the capitalist market system does. And it would create a better product, because if you're going to keep your prices high, you have to say, we've got the best healthcare since, who knows what, right? Mm-hmm. Or you've got to drop your price to compete with whoever is beating you, right? But no, we've got state laws that prevent companies from going across state lines. We've also got federal laws and federal regulations. These corporations who offer healthcare, their profit margin is teeny weeny. In fact, it is controlled by law that they're only allowed to profit so much, and so much of this profit has to go back into development and this and that. I mean, there's so many laws. It is very expensive to run these things. Who started that? That was Ted Kennedy and the Democrats in the
Right.
HMO. That's why healthcare costs keep going up and up and up. Also because it has no relationship to you and me. When we go to the hospital and we get our, medication or whatever, why does an aspirin cost $20? Well,
Right.
because we don't pay it, right? We just send the bill to, the government or our healthcare provider, et cetera, and they've got to negotiate the rates. Instead of you and me saying, excuse me, doc, but this aspirin here is like $45. Why am I paying that? We're doing what we've done with education. We're taking it out, we're separating the direct responsibility from payer and employer, if you will, that contract between two people. We're putting in a government system that is inefficient. And that started with the Democrats. That was the camel's nose under the tent in the first place. And we've got regulation after regulation. If you have a problem with it, do you know how you stop it? We got so many lawyers all over the United States, they can shut down. If you've got a bad healthcare industry, or if you've got a bad doctor or a bad hospital, believe me, there are plenty of lawyers out there just licking their chops. They will keep these folks honest. We don't need a government system on top of that. The reason that they're doing this, the reason that Bernie Sanders and the socialists / communists, because that's what this is, the reason that they're doing this is control. Control from cradle to grave. I'm going to control if I can control your health and your food and your energy, right? The FDA and the energy. If I can get those three things, I control your entire life. And you will have to come bowing and scraping and kissing my feet to get the medication you need to save your baby. So that is what's going on here.
So I want to address something that actually is a comment that I see on Facebook, and it's something that I need to address because people may be reading this and not understand the facts. Laura has commented on the Liberty Eagle. She says Bernie is not a socialist. He is an independent progressive. I really think you are both out of touch. Or lunch, she says, out of lunch. And if I'm not out of lunch if you actually see any pictures of me. I got a ton of lunch in me. But other than that, Laura, you've wrong on all aspects. First of all, progressives are socialists. The idea of progressive, if you want to dig down into the ideology itself, progressive is simply the evolutionary aspects of dialectical materialism. That's what progressivism means. So socialism, progressivism, democratic socialism, whatever you want to call it. Laura, he's called himself a democratic socialist. So the fact that you think that he's not a socialist, well, just the bottom line is you're incorrect. You're wrong. Do a little bit of research. Understand what progressivism is.
Let us educate you. Really.
Yes.
These are names. You are talking about these Democrat ideologues and these people in the media. They use terms for an effect to mislead you. Okay, yes. He's teamed up with 16 Senate Democrat colleagues.
Right. Yeah.
These are Democrat ideologues. Democrats today, they are not the same Democrats that were in Kennedy's time. They are Marxist socialists. They are advancing lockstep towards an agenda which is one government control, frankly, over the whole world. So that is what their goal is.
So before we break this, one more comment that I want to address. Billy has mentioned that there are a lot of drugs coming from other countries, and he's seen that over the years. I agree, Billy. There's a lot of drugs that come from a lot of countries. But if you look in on xeconomy.com, is a company that actually does a lot of different evaluations of statistics. They have reported that from 2001 to 2010 that the United States has created 50% or 57% of the total new chemical entities that are created in the pharmaceutical industry. So, and the only other person that even holds a candle even close to that is Switzerland, which is 13%. So on that note, we're going to go to break, folks. We'll be back on the Battlefield Live radio program. You're listening to Chris Pilier and Susan Swift. Stick with us, folks. We'll be right back as we battle the lies and illuminate the truth. Stick with me. We'll be right back.
Lanterns illuminate the truth.
People often ask me, they say, Chris, how is it that we can change the minds of many in this country? And I say, well, you first don't start with the mind. You have to start with the heart. You don't change minds without changing hearts. And that's what we're going to do. It wasn't that long ago that you might have not have had hope for the country, and all of a sudden you have a change of heart. Well, expect that other people right now feel the same way that you used to. It's those people that we have to reach out to. It may be you that we have to reach out to. So it's our task to form a community, a group, unified behind principles, unified behind what has made America the country that it is now. It's about liberty. It's about freedom. And everybody wants to experience this. We just have to show them how. It's about you being a lantern shining out the light of truth. And we can bring this all together in one place. It's truly about shining city on the hill. Hope is not in the hands of someone else. It's within ourselves. It's within our hearts. It's within our minds. And it's about utilizing those things in order to be able to make us free.
Lanterns illuminating the truth. Battlefield Live.
Folks, thank you for sticking with us on the battlefield. I like his headline, folks. His headline is fantastic. This is for you, Laura. The Democrats have become socialists. The headline right out of the Washington Post, of all places. The Washington Compost, as Levin calls him. He's funny. So let's get right back into this. Actually, before we do that, I do want to mention a couple things here. Let me bring Susan back up on the screen here because gotta step up the good looks on the screen because I'm struggling with it over here. So folks, if you're enjoying the program, which I'm sure you are, but if you're enjoying the program, make sure you support us as well as all our affiliates, including the Liberty Eagle and Lanterns Media Network at lanterns.buzz, the website lanterns.buzz. Also, if you want to subscribe to our podcast, you can get it in many places. You can get it at iTunes, Stitcher, TuneIn, Player.fm, and SoundCloud, as well as YouTube. On Spreaker, you can get it there. We're also on iHeartRadio, and from Lanterns Media Network, it's not the only program that we have. We got tons of great content from tons of great radio programs. You can check it out on iHeartRadio. Also, you can find me at Lanterns Buzz on both Facebook and Twitter. Actually, that's where you can find Lanterns. You can find me at Paul Revere again. And then Susan, where can they find you on social media?
Oh, they can find me on social media at Real Susan Swift, and they can find me through my website, susanswift.net, susanswift.net.
So the bold and brave Bernie Sanders has turned the entire Democratic establishment into socialists. And look, folks, quite honestly, the Democratic Party has been socialist for a very long time. But
what's funny is the Washington Post finally gets it.
Yeah, they
get it. Everybody gets it. We're all on the same page. We all know we're dealing with, socialism.
Yeah, they come out the closet. I guess you could say it's the Caitlyn Jenner moment for the Democratic Party.
It's so true. They have come out of the closet. They've been working their way. They've been in the closet for years, and now it's as you would say, the full Monty. They're out there.
Yeah. So what I want to do in contrast to the idiot babbling Bernie Sanders is I want to play in contrast some commentary from Ronald Reagan back. I'm trying to think what this was. I know it was back I believe in the 50s or the 60s. Him talking about socialized medicine. And some of you may have listened to this before, and I'm not going to play the entirety of it. It's 10 minutes long. I'm only going to play a few minutes of it. And I want you to listen to Ronald Reagan's comments about healthcare being a right and what it actually does, not only to the patients, but the doctors, and how it is the doorway. It is the gateway drug, if you will, to the evil addictions of socialism. So check this out. This is Ronald Reagan on his universal healthcare opinion. Check this out.
Now, in our country, under our free enterprise system, we have seen medicine reach the greatest heights that it has in any country in the world. Today, the relationship between patient and doctor in this country is something to be envied any place. The privacy, the care that is given to a person, the right to choose a doctor, the right to go from one doctor to the other. But let's also look from the other side at the freedom the doctor loses. A doctor would be reluctant to say this. Well, like you, I'm only a patient, so I can say it in his behalf. The doctor begins to lose freedoms. It's like telling a lie, and one leads to another. First, you decide that the doctor can have so many patients. They're equally divided among the various doctors by the government. But then the doctors aren't equally divided geographically. So a doctor decides he wants to practice in one town, and the government has to say to him, you can't live in that town. They already have enough doctors. You have to go someplace else. And from here, it's only a short step to dictating where he will go. This is a freedom that I wonder whether any of us have the right to take from any human being. I know how I'd feel if you, my fellow citizens, decided that to be an actor, I had to become a government employee and work in a national theater. Take it into your own occupation or that of your husband. All of us can see what happens once you establish the precedent that the government can determine a man's working place and his working methods, determine his employment. From here, it's a short step to all the rest of socialism, to determining his pay, and pretty soon your son won't decide when he's in school where he will go or what he will do for a living. He will wait for the government to tell him where he will go to work and what he will do.
All right, so this is beautifully laid out by Ronald Reagan. It's timeless in respect, and keep in mind that this particular video or audio rather was during the time of the Cold War. So it's at the time when socialism was really the people that were expressing it in trying to create the communist utopia in places like the Soviet Union and Mao's China and so forth. Those individuals were proud and they weren't ashamed about promoting this communist utopia. And so now we've had a lot of shame since the truth about communism has come about. And I don't necessarily want to get into that tonight on this particular program because we've talked about it before. But what he's saying here is absolutely right. And the reason why a lot of people should be very scared about this dabbling of the toe, this injection of the heroin that is socialism into our blood system in America, is that Ronald Reagan is showing the doors opening in the metaphorically through this explanation about how we travel through the point to the point where the government tells us, since healthcare is a right and there's no doctors in that town, if you want to be a doctor, you have to go to that town. In the extreme of that is a guy that I met actually when I was in the Tea Party movement, a guy by the name of Oleg Asbastian. And Oleg Asbastian he actually runs a website called The People's Cube. You might have run across it before. And what he said was, in order for him to be a painter, because he wanted to be a painter, he wanted to be an artist, he had to join an artist union. He couldn't just go to the Soviet store in his local Soviet and buy a canvas and some paint. You had to have a license in order to be able to buy things to paint, because if you were able to freely go buy paint, then you would be taking away a job of a painter that was in the union. So he had to join the union. Well, guess what his job was when he joined the union? He became a Soviet propagandist. He was a propagandist for the Soviet Union. And what Ronald Reagan is explaining here is that this entire infrastructure that would need to be put into place in order to be able to give a right to people to have health care would be to, in essence, undermine the rights of all Americans, including doctors. And when you take that right away from a doctor to practice where he wishes and charge what he uses to charge for his great services, then all of a sudden doctors don't want to be doctors anymore. And then you end up in places like Canada and Britain and Venezuela in the worst case scenario. And you don't have doctors. It's a right, but guess what? It's a right to not get it because there's no doctors to provide it. Does that make sense, Susan?
You know what? I still need a cigarette after listening to Ronald Reagan. Sorry, but that was so good.
Yes,
He's
I don't
brilliant.
quite feel that
I
same
just
way. But
sorry, but I just swoon every time I hear the man. But because he's, well, I have to inject a little bit of humor into this, just from a female perspective. He's brilliant. And all you have to do is, as he said, just take it a step further. What about, we're seeing this in education.
Right.
The government tells you with your loans and things, well, if you want to repay your loans, you can go and serve the government in this capacity, and we will waive some of your debt.
That's a very, very good point.
It's going that way anyway. So and what you're going to do is, the best and the brightest, the people who want to, look, I've got a daughter who she thinks she wants to maybe go into medicine, maybe science and things like that. She's looking at 4 years undergrad, at least 4 more years in medical school, and then there's internships and stuff on top of that. We're talking probably almost 12 years
Right.
to get there, all right? And she's probably going to have massive debt unless, I don't know, I win the lottery, because I can't pay for that. I just can't. And so she's going into debt, and she's going to have to pay that off somehow. Well, the only reason, one of the primary reasons, not the only reasons, most doctors, I believe, and scientists, they want the common good. They want to help people. They want to. And so they say, I can use my skill. I'm smart. I'll do this, and I will benefit a lot of people. I will give time. Most doctors, I believe, I don't have the stats in front of me, most doctors donate a percentage of their time. Mm-hmm. Traditionally, it has been 15 to 20% of your time as an attorney
Rand
or as a
Paul
doctor.
used to do it.
You give to the poor. You give to those who cannot pay. And I know doctors who do this. You know, they do. But now they're so swamped with bureaucracy and paperwork, and their profit margin is cut into so many different ways that they can't afford to do that. Well, look at the people, you know, like my daughter, she's going to come out with insane debt with the idea, the notion going in now, 12 years, you know, before the fact, she thinks she's going to be making a salary that will allow her to go into debt and then pay it off, right? That it'll be worth it. When you come through in 12 years or 10 years, however long it goes, what if the government says, oh, yeah, you wanted to be obstetrics? Well, we don't want obstetrics. We took care of that with abortion and the pill. We need you to be, you know, an osteoporosis person, you know, an osteopath, because we got old people. We don't have young people. We got old people. Well, I don't want to study, you know, bones. Well, I'm sorry, but that's what you got to do. If you want to discharge your debt, go back 2 more years, and you have to be an osteopath. Okay. See, it takes away her choice.
Right.
It takes away her ability. And then pretty soon the word gets out, and people who are either smart enough or diligent enough, because you can be either, right?
Right.
And when you want to work really hard, and if you're maybe not the smartest person in the room, but you work the hardest, you can still succeed. Well, at certain points, these people say, I'm not going to work that hard.
Right. That's it.
I don't want to do this. I'm out of here.
It robs you of, and look, you could look to the extremes of.
That's the pursuit of happiness. Well, there it goes.
You can look to, because liberty comes before the pursuit of happiness, and the pursuit of happiness that you're talking about, you're absolutely right. If you go to some of the poorest places in the country where the welfare system has completely rotted the will of the people to actually stand on their own, you can see exactly what you're talking about. But I want to go back to the comment you made about education. Because a lot of people are frustrated with our education system. And a lot of people do not look at our education system and understand that it is a socialist system. Of course,
yes,
maybe
it exactly is. It's the government loans and things.
So, but I want to talk about something else, though, because that you're right about that. But I want to ask any of you out there that have children in a public school, and you look to the county next to you, or the parish if you're in Louisiana, and if you look next to the next parish and you want to send your kid to a better public school, you cannot send your child to that public school because they're not in your district. You have to send them in your district. Right. The word district is something that's out of the Soviet Union. Sector is out of the Soviet Union. A Soviet is a sector. So the point is that our education system has become socialized. Well, what happens with this education system? Why does it suck so bad? People on the left always say... Is
that a technical term of ours?
Yes, that's the technical term for our education system is suck. Hear the suck. So the point is that our education system sucks so bad because we've robbed the merit out of our education system. We basically promise people jobs, and in a university system, we give them, basically give them a lifetime job with tenure, and there is no merit anymore. There is no working to be the better teacher. Now, the educators are now, and you can ask any teacher out there how frustrated they are that they cannot be creative in teaching their children. They're fed a formula that the government has mandated, that they have to follow a certain formula so they can indoctrinate our children in the way that they want to create and mold them behaviorally. And
Common Core.
That's
Common
it.
Core, baby.
And so that is what socialism looks like, folks. And for Laura, I know I don't want to be picking on Laura too much because I respect Laura's opinions, but the fact is, Laura, that we are a socialist nation. We're maybe not as extreme as a Venezuela or a Cuba, which communism doesn't exist, so they are a socialist nation. The fact of the matter is that we are a socialist nation as well, and we're creeping to more and more of it. And if we don't recognize
soft socialism.
Yes.
It's a soft socialism, which is the most insidious and the most dangerous. I mean, if we have hard and fast and firm socialism, you can feel it and see it. But this is this creeping, soft little snake-like sneaking up on you. It's soft socialism. And to touch back on your point about education, because I'm living that, teachers, they must, in my state, they must join a union. They are not allowed to just apply for a job and say, hey, I want to be a great teacher. Oh, no, no, no. You must be a member of the teachers union. And your dues are obligatory. You have to kick in, $70 a month or whatever it is. You must pay your dues. If you don't, you can't have a job. That's socialism. It's a quasi-government entity. It's these unions that have got such a chokehold on education that you have to work in that district, and you have to pay your dues, and you're there, and you can't. The teachers don't have a lot of freedom because they've got to apply to be in the next place. The parents, we're stuck. We have to fill out government forms.
Right.
I have to apply for government forms to move from one elementary school to another, and I have to justify it. I have to put my tax bill on there, or my house, the electricity bill or the utility bill, and I have to ask and plead and beg and scrape for the government.
Right.
These government officials, whether they're teachers or the local people running they are my employees. I voted for them and I pay them. They're my employees, and they're dictating to me where I can put my kid. And that is why the beauty of like Betsy DeVos and the idea, hopefully under Trump, is to go to vouchers. What are vouchers? Vouchers mean, okay, all the money that we collect as a government for education, because we all agree that education is a very good thing for us collectively, right? It's a collective good to make sure we all have education, at least the opportunity for education. So if I get the taxpayer dollars, we have all of this pool. Right now, it's the state government that decides, okay, all of these state schools are getting pieces of the money, right? But no private individuals are. That impacts my right as a parent.
Right.
I can't choose a private school, whether it's parochial or otherwise. I can't choose that. I have to go to I can't even pick a public school.
Right.
I have to go in my district where I live, right? Just
right.
like I'm stuck, or I have to apply. Vouchers.
So you weren't able to keep. So you weren't able to keep your educator, just like we weren't able to keep our doctor, right?
That's right. If you want to keep your teacher, you can keep your teacher. No,
That's
you
right.
can't. You're stuck in your.
Socialism does that to you.
And these teachers can't go anywhere.
Right.
And most of them don't like it. But what can they say? Because they're locked in by the unions. But here's what a voucher does. What a voucher does is it gives me, the parent, the power, meaning the money, to move my kid to any school. So long as there's an open seat, I can put my kid, if I want to drive 2 hours and drive them up to, I don't even care, Santa Monica, wherever, I can drive my kid there, as long as there's a seat there. And then the money goes straight from the state to that school. That would put the power back in the individual's hands, the first educators, the parents.
Right.
But we are living under a socialist system of education. Now they're just trying to do the same thing, and they already have with Obamacare, to healthcare.
So I want to focus on that exact thing there. Soft socialism, soft tyranny is what it was called by de Tocqueville. And I want to explain that. And look, I got a treat for you all. This is actually from de Tocqueville. And this is so prescient. And I want you to think about a guy that came here in the 1800s and to try to understand what was so exceptional about America. And I say that. He came here and he experienced America and then realized it was exceptional. And in that same time frame, he was formulating his ideas of soft tyranny, of what it is, how is it that tyranny creeps into a society. And I want you to listen to what he said here. And this is out of his, I can't think of the damn name of the book, Democracy in America. Okay, and so what's important is that word democracy. Okay, because democracy is one of those elusive terms that people like to throw around. Democracy itself is not what we are and what we want. So here's de Tocqueville. It says, above this race of men stands an immense and tutelary power, which takes it upon itself alone to secure their gratifications and to watch over their fates. In other words, the government is there to watch over the things that gratify us and what our fate is, right? The power is absolute, minute, regular, provident, and mild. It would be like an authority of a parent. Like that authority, its object was to prepare men for manhood, but it seeks on the contrary to keep them in a perpetual state of childhood. And this, you can see evidence of this. This is me speaking. You can see evidence of this in the welfare system and in what it does to some of our poorer communities. How a lot of these individuals can't even stand on their own. They don't speak well. They don't have any education. And this is not because we don't have the money to give them in order to go get education. It's we've destroyed the will to them to be wanted to be educated. For their happiness, this is to Tocqueville again, for their happiness, such a government willingly labors, but it chooses to be the sole agent and only arbiter of that happiness. So it doesn't allow us to pursue happiness, but rather it gives us happiness. Or that's what it's intending to do.
It tells you what kind of happiness you want.
Right. And
that's what it tells you. You're going to get this kind of happiness, and this is the only kind of happiness that you need. You ought to be happy.
Right. It also manages their principal concerns, directs their industry, regulates the descent of property. It subdivides their inheritances, what remains, but to spare them all the care of thinking and the trouble of living. So it's basically trying to take away the inherent nature of humanity, which is suffering. Jesus Christ suffered on the cross as a symbol not only of the greatness that God and the sacrifice that he had made for us, but also the suffering that is natural in all of us. Work is suffering. It sucks to have to work, but that is our nature. and if the government tries to take that away from us, it's no differently than trying to take away, them trying to take away that the fattiness of ice cream. I'd love for them to be able to do that, but they can't. All right. So sorry, I swerved off the road here in trying to explain to Tocqueville.
Christ's suffering and the fattiness of ice cream.
Yes.
I don't even know where to go with
that. That's a bumper sticker or a T-shirt.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So,
that's a hashtag. Mug of wine.
So yeah, that's it. That's probably what I need is a little bit more wine in my mug. Okay, so let me continue with him. Almost done. Thus, it every day renders the exercise of the free agency of man less useful and less frequent. So in other words, it reduces our will. It circumscribes the will within a narrower range and gradually robs a man of all the uses of himself. So it takes away our will to want to be men and women, which is producers and pursuers of happiness. The principle of equality has prepared men for these things. It has predisposed men to endure them as benefits. And this is the most powerful, the most impressive thought that I think that de Tocqueville ever expressed. At least that's my opinion. He says, after having thus successfully taken each member of the community in its powerful grasp and fashioned him at will, the supreme power then and I want you to think about Bernie Sanders in this respect. The supreme power then extends its arm over the whole community, think about it, like a big shadowy arm, right? In Bernie Sanders' respect, it would be with milk and wheat and yeah, it's a big yeah. It says it covers the surface of society with a network of small, complicated rules, minute and uniform, through which the most original minds and the most energetic characters, think of doctors and people that create fabulous drugs to help keep us well, cannot penetrate the rise above the crowd. The will of man is not shattered, but softened, as you said, Susan, softened, like soft tyranny, bent and guided. Men are seldom forced by it to act, but they are constantly restrained from acting. The red you mentioned earlier is a restraint from us being able to act and pursue our happiness. Such a power, this is great here, such a power does not destroy, but it prevents existence. It does not tyrannize, but it compresses, enervates, extinguishes, and stupefies a people, till each nation is reduced to nothing better than a flock of timid and industrious animals of which the government is the shepherd. I just love reading that. That is so powerful. Yeah. Wouldn't you say that? How powerful is that? What do you think about that?
Well, de Tocqueville is eloquent beyond belief, and to read him and to listen to him being read is marvelous. And what he says is so true. And all I kept reverberating in my head somehow, maybe because I don't know why, but the way in which this creeping socialism takes away manhood. Our men, American men, the same American men who jumped into boats during Hurricane Harvey and during Florida and Irma and went out there and saved animals, saved people, saved anything they could. They just got it done. These are American men. They go out, and they have for centuries. They go out into the cold and the rain and the wet, and they fight to make their lives and the lives of others around them better. Most men do. They are good, honorable citizens because of freedom. And when you start taking away a man's livelihood, you're attacking his manhood. And we are seeing fewer and fewer brave warriors, brave Americans, brave men who are willing to defend women, who are willing to defend children, who are willing to defend our country, because it's just easier to get a check. It's easier to go ahead and say, all right, whatever. And that is an attack on, I mean, we're even seeing a decline in fertility. Because if you take away what a man strives for, if you take away the struggle, you take away the essence of what it is to be human,
and
like you were saying.
And the thing is there's an attraction to men. Women are attracted in many cases to men because of their strength and
their virility and their
yes,
strength. But
yes.
even that is changing now. We've got studies now where the maybe it's the millennial generation. I'd have to pull it up, but the younger women are starting to get more of the pajama boy. That's what they want. The touchy-feely pajama guy, who's drinking his hot cocoa. And we're seeing that ambivalence everywhere. Instead of,
But is that what they want, or is that what's available?
Well, that I don't know. But I do know that, look, at the end of the day, if you're going to train a man, if you say, look, if you want to get a girl, here's how you have to be. You have to be compliant and kind of wimpy and soft, and you have to kind of go along with whatever there's teaching in the socialist school called college. And if you have to do, there's certain, look, there's a uniform to wear, right? Everybody knows what you got. You have to have the stubbly growth, and everybody knows these guys aren't stupid, and they want to get a girl, right? So they have to be touchy-feely and all of these different things, and they have to also, it wouldn't be okay to be, aggressive and go out there and be a business charger. I mean, this is subliminal.
Yeah.
But to erode a young man's will to say, no, I'm not taking
It's making him deny his nature. And what's happening is I do, and look, I'm not a behavioral psychologist by any means, but I do know I've read a lot about this, and a lot of it was in my younger days trying to figure out, well, how do I attract beautiful women? And it was really about, it was from behavioral psychologists that said that, well, women, they desire a man that can provide, and people that are confident in themselves.
Providing.
Yes, and they're confident in themselves.
The government now provides.
Well,
the government is now in the place of the man. So the government is now providing. So now, a woman is, she's got sugar daddy called the government. And now what are you? You're just,
Well, what's happening too is
whatever.
You're absolutely right, because the government is actually injecting themselves into our relationships, and they're creating these boundaries for us. I mean, how long is it going to be until we cannot no longer go get in our boats and save people because of the risks that come with
the regulations? You're not allowed to go out and save somebody because you might not save them right. You might interfere with their saving, and it might be bad. I mean, there's even a website I stumbled upon. It's called Men Going Their Own Way, mgtow.com. Really interesting. And these are guys who are like, I'm out of here. I'm done with all of this female manipulation. I mean, look, men need to be men. And if a government system like socialism undermines that, starting from grade school on up, is it any wonder when we don't have strong societies and strong men who are willing to lead?
Yeah,
I don't think it's a surprise.
And the thing is let's not let people drive our conversation into what it's not. We're not saying is that men need to be aggressive alpha males and beating, dragging their women around by their hair and all that. We're talking about right. No, I'm just saying that because that's what the liberals do when they take the conversation that we're having now and they're trying to basically make it sound like it's the oppressive male over the submissive female.
Yeah, right.
And that's not
I'm
what we're
so
talking
submissive.
about. Well, it brings it back to that whole class warfare thing. The powerful over the powerless, the powerful man over the powerless female. In the intention of Marxism and the postmodernists and Laura, if you want to call them progressives or whatever, is the fact that we have people that are trying to undermine the nature of men and women. They're trying to destroy the lines and the boundaries between things, including our bathrooms. Why? Because they believe that those boundaries are oppression. They're forms of oppression. And so I want to kind of narrow this down because we just got basically a couple minutes here.
I can't believe it goes so fast.
Yes, it goes so fast. So I think that the core of the show here, and we've talked about, let's shift gears back to Charlottesville. Oh yes, let's bring back Charlottesville, where the protesters from Antifa,
the hard left wacko protesters on both sides.
We're talking
both
about
leftists.
We're talking about how trying to attack these big monuments to slavery and things like that. The biggest monument to slavery, the biggest monopoly, Bernie Sanders, is the federal government. The biggest enslaver, the biggest plantation exists in Washington D.C. in your hometown. It is the federal government. The chains that you are trying to put on us are the chains that Martin Luther King and Abraham Lincoln fought to take off. The shackles and the manacles that they've ripped off of black Americans, and now you're trying to put them on all Americans. And these are things that we have to prevent. And look, folks, there may be 2,000, 3,000, 4,000, 5,000 people that watch this particular video and listen to this broadcast on Liberty Eagle, and maybe another couple thousand on Lanterns, and maybe another 5,000 or 6,000, 10,000 on iHeartRadio. Thousands of people around the country, but it's not millions that need to hear this type of message. Maybe not this exact message, but the fact of the matter is our duty as Americans is to spread Americanism, not socialism. And so we have to engage on the battlefield of ideas like this program, the battlefield of ideas and this may be at the living room table, dining room table during Thanksgiving. This might be when trick-or-treating with your neighbor, and not going out, oh, you're an idiot liberal, blah, 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 or, I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about opening up a simple dialogue and ask questions. Ask questions and get response. And then when they start to talk about things, maybe that be leaning towards, well, I'm kind of liking this Bernie Sanders guy. Well, that's when the battlefield has to kick in. And not a bludgeoning of the person. Oh, you're an idiot because you like Bernie Sanders. No, it needs to be, well, I understand why Bernie Sanders is so appealing, but let me explain this in the way that I see this, and let me get your thoughts on this. And break it down. And you have to basically, we're talking about pharmaceuticals earlier. The pill that has to be swallowed is one that the system that we have to embrace needs to be incorporated in the nature of human beings, the nature of man, nature of society. And it also is sometimes a pill that we don't want to have to swallow, but it is the truth that we have to swallow. And the fact of the matter is we're never going to give free health care to everybody. It's never going to happen. The actuaries say that Medicare and Medicaid are going to collapse in the next 15 years, and Bernie Sanders wants to double down on that. He wants to put all chips on red, and that's just not going to happen. Your final thoughts, Susan? We got basically a minute here.
I think you're right, and I think Bernie Sanders is a threat, as all socialist communists are, and I really hope that they keep running Hillary Clinton at us so that they keep putting this front and center, because as we come into 2018, the battle now is for the Senate. We have to beat the socialist establishment, which is also the GOP. And they're the ones who haven't been able to repeal Obamacare and who are going along in all of this. We've got to defeat them.
All right, folks, you've been listening to the Battlefield Live radio program. Thank you for joining us on the Battlefield. We'll be back on Tuesday, Central Standard Time, 7 o'clock. Make sure you check us out. And we really appreciate if you share this particular video, like our page on Lanterns Buzz as well as the Liberty Eagle. Make sure you share. Get this message out there, and we hope to have you back next Tuesday, 8 p.m. Eastern, 7 p.m. Central. Thank you from Susan over there and Chris over here. The Battlefield Live radio program will be back. Thank you for joining us.